Right, thank you so much to all our incredible panelists for that discussion. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we'll delve into interior design and the transformative power of color, lighting, and spatial planning. To take us through this discussion, please welcome to the stage Hany Saad, CEO and founder of Hany Saad Innovations. Along with him is Paul Bishop, owner and founder of Bishop Design, and your moderator, Nour Amache, senior business news presenter at Asharq Bloomberg.
Hello, hi, how are you? Pleasure. Hello, hi, how are you? Good? So I'll be using this mic. Hello, and welcome everybody to this session today. It's an interesting one. So we know that interior design is not only about decorating, it's the way we experience spaces, blending the aesthetics part with the functionality to create environments that inspire. This session today will delve into the transformative power of color, lighting, and spatial planning, examining how thoughtful design enhances mood, productivity, and everyday living. Please allow me to welcome our esteemed panelists here, Mr. Hany Saad, the CEO and founder of Hany Saad Innovations, and Mr. Paul Bishop, the owner and founder of Bishop Design. Thank you for joining us in this panel this afternoon. So let me start with you, Hany. Your designs are known for their striking balance between luxury and functionality. How do you do this? How do you approach the creative process to ensure that the aesthetics appeal doesn't compromise practical use?
First of all, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you today. I will tell you, as an architect and interior designer, it's not an easy job. You have to think very widely. The role of the interior design is to find the solutions of the problems the real users have. So everyone, he has special needs and requirements in his space. The knowledge and the creative mind of the designer is to solve these needs of the users with a creative way to make him feel he's really enjoying the space he's living in. So you have a specific and very important role in understanding the real lifestyle and the daily routine of the user of the space. This is how you can reflect it in the design and how they can live comfortably in the space. So it's not only a luxury. We don't have to design spaces with a luxury point of view, rather than doing it to make them feel really comfortable in the space.
Well, that's important, as you are saying, Hany. Paul, so your projects also are known to build bold, feature bold statement-making design elements. How do you maintain harmony between impactful aesthetics on the one hand and the functional requirements of a space on the other hand?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we do as interior designers, right? We inherit these sort of problems and, we create the solutions for them. And I think, what we're doing now, Bishop Design's evolving. I think my style's evolving after being in the US 3.5 years now, and seeing how things work or don't work over there compared to what they do here. And understanding the balance and the harmony and the equilibrium that, how people engage with space, how people react in different environments and different conditions. And I think, as much as a restaurant or a hotel or any, hospitality sector or any design exists, it's all about creating that flow. Especially the front and back of house sort of juxtapositions and interfaces. So flow operations is paramount. Without getting that correct, it doesn't matter how beautiful the space would look. If it's dysfunctional, it won't survive. So, you have to balance all of these different sort of situations over. And I think, when you're talking about the bold, making that bold impact, that bold statement, I think it's all about choosing your moment within the interior, and it's choosing your hero. It's all about the hero. You don't want to overpopulate it. You want 1 or 2, 3 heroes within the room to make the whole space pop. And I think, finding that, establishing which one that is. And someone once said to me, and it stuck with me throughout my career, was, you can, it's sometimes more powerful what you leave out than what you put in. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of stuck with me, and that's all about design. Sometimes, it's not what we put in there, it's actually what we leave out that gives it this character and charisma and impact and interface with the end user. And it's all about that in the hospitality sector that we're in. We're not designing for a single source audience, we're designing for a wider audience. Everyone with different tastes, everyone different palate. It's like cooking for someone. I always relate designing a restaurant is like being a chef, because we have to, cater for everyone's palate, and you might not, appeal to every single person. So, it's finding that sort of establishing that finite balance, that equilibrium that resonates with your end user, your customer experience. And like you say, it's choosing that moment. It's choosing that moment to accentuate, to animate, and really sort of drive it home, be it subtle or be it obvious. It's how we apply our design ability, like Hany was saying. It's all about applying this level. And sometimes I always think of it as being the master of puppets. It's all about manipulation, how we manipulate people within that space. We know how they're going to react. We know where they're going to go from A to Z, where they're going to sit, what environment they feel better in. So again, it's a very psychological subject also that we're dealing with here, which is interior design.
That's a great note here. So next time you feel hesitant about leaving something out, you feel like you really like this thing, but you're hesitant. Shall I keep it inside or leave it out? Sometimes leaving it out, although you love it, is a better choice. That's Absolutely. A really interesting point here. You brought up, Paul.
It works here as well, and it's very. I always find it very difficult. I think designers here are very challenged. And I think, you're looking at other places in the world. Miami's pretty similar to what we're doing here, is that we're inheriting new builds. They're devoid of soul, they're devoid of character. It's just a glass sort of brick. Not brick, it's just sort of building block material. Whereas in the, other parts of the world that have a little bit more culture, a little bit more established heritage in what they're designing within, it's all about what you leave that gives it the inherent character of the space. I always used to refer it to as palimpsest when we're going through architectural school. It's the overwriting of a text. So it's stripping back. So on the old days, it's wipe the slate clean. That's where the phrase comes from, because you used to write on slate. You used to erase it and rewrite. So it's what you've left and what you see under the writing that gives it the,
That's a great thought
the design.
Out there. So he spoke about materials, and currently we all talk about sustainability, whether it's in our everyday life, whether it's in building, whether in interior design. So with sustainability in focus, Hany, and it's an important thing, of course. So how are you integrating eco-conscious materials while not jeopardizing or sacrificing the visual impact that you intend to show?
This is really a very good question. In my opinion, sustainability is not against beauty. So to go green, to go sustainable, is not necessarily you have to work or select not nice materials or not good-looking materials. I believe that sustainability enhances the design and make it more practical, richer, and had a little more value. And it has a long time than the ones we used, not sustainable. So, in my opinion, it's not sustainability competing with beauty or with luxury. So you have a lot of very good-looking, naturally materials that you can use in the space. You can enhance the design of the natural lighting, the very good ventilation, the solar system, the controllers, the home automation. A lot of aspects can be taken in consideration in the design that will enhance the sustainability and the lifetime of the project. So it's very important to start teaching people that sustainability and to go green is not against luxury or beauty.
Although there's always a thin line between some materials being not very sustainable, the use of extensive use of leather, extensive use of certain materials in the interior design might jeopardize this.
Yes, of course,
right?
but now you have a lot of alternatives and a lot of recycled materials. Now we know how to recycle glass.
Here's the key, the recycled, yeah.
A lot of recycled materials now, like cork and artificial wood, they give the same effect and same feeling of the space. So it's not necessary to keep using the materials that is affecting the environment anymore.
There's even plant-based leathers now as well.
Yes,
so again,
exactly.
it's something
and
that's
this
really
is something
evolved.
really, I mean, it's environmentally friendly and it's sustainable. Paul, speaking about design, one of the main aspects that goes into any interior design is lighting, and this is crucial, especially when we come to think about the coziness of a space and the functionality of a space. So it's always a thin line between having a very bright room and white lighting and a dim
like this,
and a dim colored room, giving this cozy, luxurious effect. How do you balance between the functionality of a bright room and the coziness of a warm room?
I think lighting's 90% of any interior, and this is how we get educated coming up through sort of art school, through design, university, everything. That it's an inherent part of what we do, and it's a very important part, if not the most important part of what we do. And especially when you're looking at a hospitality sector, and it's all about that interaction, that social engagement. And I think, creating the right context of light is paramount. Like you say, we talk about Kelvin, it's the way that temperature's measured and light's measured. And, the most flattering light that we see to dine with is candlelight. So, you're looking at 1,700 Kelvin to 2,300 Kelvin up to 2,700 Kelvin. That's kind of the spectrum that you really want to be in. Any higher, it's white light. Any lower, it's too amber, and it doesn't sort of engage too well or reflect off the skin. So you want to establish that beautiful lit environment. Obviously, we have dimming controls that can control that, but you've got to get the right source of light first. So if I'm dining, I want that. We also have to look at the interfaces, like we're saying, back of house, kitchen. Because kitchen can't work or process using that light. They have to have 3,000 and above white light. So again, you have to look at the interfaces. Goes back to the first question, all about the spatiality and flow. If you've got front and back of house interfacing, then you're going to get this sort of pollution coming out, this light pollution. And if those two conditions mix, then your complexion becomes very green. It's a very not a very flattering light. So of course, when we're trying to establish a beautiful interior, we're looking at that sort of Kelvin level. And there's ways to do it. There's beautiful lights out there that if we just want to animate the food, we can, so you don't get this spooling of light. You just animate the food when it hits the table, and you're in a kind of subtle darkness around it. FZN, the 3-star Michelin that Bjorn just got last week in the Atlantis, that is completely, there's no natural light in the dining area. You're split between levels. You have natural light, then you go down into we call it the copper mine, and there's no natural light in there, so the lighting has to be perfect. But the chefs are also cooking in that space. It's like you're in their kitchen. So again, it's a very sort of finite and delicate balance that you have to strive to achieve, and this is just through trial and error, having that sort of passion and knowledge. I think, coming up through design university and school, we had these sort of electives where people from Philips and other sort of lighting companies would come in and teach us about light. You don't have to be a lighting designer to understand it, but, decorative lighting is different to technical lighting, architectural landscaping. We're doing a big beach club in Miami at the moment, and we have to be very careful of the light pollution and the other pollution because of the turtles. So again, you've got all these conservation that gets back to the other sort of train of thought that we're talking about. So no, light for me is everything. And if you have natural light, it's beautiful, but it's transient. It's throughout the day. You have to control that. You have to maintain that environment.
So it's about balance.
Everything's about balance. Everything we do is about balance. Right? We're always striving for that. Even the imbalanced is balanced, So again, it's...
So speaking about balance, Hany, so clients sometimes ask for opulent designs. They prioritize opulence, although many people do not know that some things or some designs or what they are visualizing is many times not practical. So how do you try to educate them on the importance of spatial planning, also on one hand, and ergonomic design to enhance the daily living?
Well, this is a real life challenge. It's very hard because most of people, in my opinion, they are asking the designers to design spaces and houses for them just to impress the guests and the people, not for them to enjoy it. So the most important issue here is you should know that you are designing a home for yourself to enjoy and to feel comfortable, not to impress other people. So it's not necessarily that luxury will make you compromise with the practicality. When the designer has the know-how and the knowledge and the experience to turn the luxury items and to do it in a practical way, I guess the real user or the clients will enjoy living in the space very well designed. So you have to think exactly what you need, what is your daily lifestyle, what is your daily routine, because we are not the same. The things you need is different than the ones I need. So according to what your requirements and your needs, the designer should adapt this and make it customized for you. It's not something generic. So we educate the clients, and we are telling them that it's not against the philosophy of luxury, but you have to think of yourself and your family and how do you enjoy the life in your house.
Well, speaking about what impresses us and what impresses the guests and what is going with the trend. So now if we look at pictures and photos from the 80s, from the 90s, from the early 2000s, and now we see a huge change and difference between what was trendy back then and what is trendy now, and many very old trends are possibly coming back. And when someone hires an interior designer to do his house, his villa, or his restaurant, shop, hotel, he wants to put, he will be putting a lot of money and a big investment in this. Paul, how do you make sure that this investment in this design is timeless? Because if they invest this big amount of money, they cannot change it in 2-3 years. The investment has to be, lucrative.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that this is trendy, yet can last for a good amount of years?
Well, I think you just answered all your own questions there, but nothing left for me to say. Fashion trends are cyclic. They're rhetoric. They're constantly moving. They're constantly evolving. Like interior design. Interior design is ephemeral. It's changing. It's not like architecture where you're going to leave a legacy. It's not concretized in time. It's here today, gone tomorrow. It's like I say, it depends on that moment. So things are transient. I think with interior design, I think to be current or on point is not to follow trend. Because if you do follow a certain trend or a certain material or a certain color, then that becomes obsolete when that changes, right? Because, like I say, they're seasonal. You have this Pantone color. I really don't get it. Where are you going to apply that? That's more for graphics and brand and fashion and other sort of genres and disciplines within the design world. So when we're looking at interiors, you shouldn't follow trend in that. It shouldn't be a rule of thumb. It should be, if you want something to be current, then it's about trying to establish the timelessness, like you said. So you're looking at materiality, things that are concrete, stable. I remember coming here, I've been here 29 years in the Middle East and in Dubai, and everything when I came here was either Venge or cherry. And it was like, you can walk into these spaces and you're like, I can tell you when that was built, I can tell you when it was fashionable. Now you don't see that. You see the use of oaks, natural materials, walnut, things that won't date in time. So they become timeless. You can swap out a bit of fabric, you can swap out a little bit of color if you feel that's what's going to sort of give it this sort of current appeal. But I think what we all try to establish is an environment that is timeless. Look at the greats. You know, look at Corbusier, Adolphe Loos, some of these, the first interior designers as we knew it. These were architects, but they were the first ones to champion interior design because it wasn't a discipline in those days. And they're still current to date. You look at, I have a chaise longue at home. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. It's something that will date beautifully with time to establish this sort of timelessness around it. And I think that's what we all strive to achieve. If you want something that's trending, if you want something, that's that Insta moment that everyone's talking about. But that's changeable. You can swap that out. But like you say, if Hany was saying, you're designing for the home, you're designing for your own personal taste. And even luxury comes in different guises. Luxury isn't marble. Luxury isn't gold, Luxury comes in different forms. And I remember 20 years ago saying, oh, but concrete isn't luxurious. Well, why not? Concrete is. To me, it is. To other people, it is. It's all about personal taste. So, timelessness is a very interesting thing. Especially when you're designing restaurants. Look, it's a lot easier in hospitality, especially restaurants, because they are ephemeral. It's all about the offering at the end of the day. So you kind of follow what the offering is. The offering shouldn't be obsolete. The offering shouldn't go out of date. And that's why restaurants reinvent themselves. The culinary offerings reinvent themselves.
Correct.
And that's what keeps them current and timeless and keeps that appeal for everyone. Once that appeal's gone, they fall obsolete.
Yes, well, that's good for businesses. They have the opportunity to reinvent themselves.
Yes, you have to.
Yes. So, Hany, let me ask you, what do you consider is the most underrated design element that can significantly elevate both the functionality and the emotional impact of a space?
I guess lighting is one of the most important factors in the space. As Paul was talking now, the light can change the space, the feel and the impression and the level and the quality of the space by the lighting. So some people are neglecting the lighting fixtures used and it's a study, it's a science. You cannot do it like this. You cannot just choose the lighting fixture you like and then just put it. It has a science, so you have to know how to put exactly the architectural lighting or the decorative lighting in the space.
Yeah, it evokes emotion.
Yes, yeah, it's a great difference. So one of the most important factors in the space that can elevate it, in my opinion, is not only the furniture or the finishing materials, the lighting effects, the lighting moods can elevate the space, of course.
And for me,
and to add to that, I remember going into an interior once and everything was dark. The carpet was dark blue, the panels on the wall were mahogany, the ceiling was painted out. And the light, there was so much light in there, but it was so dark because everything absorbed in. So you didn't get any refraction of light in there. So it's like you say, it's a science. You can't just put light in and expect it to be lit. It all depends on the other complementing materials and ambience around it. So it's a complex science.
So do you believe, Paul, also that the most underrated design element is the lighting?
No.
Or do you think something else?
Of course not. I'm not going to agree with Hany. We've already spoken about light. But I'd say acoustics. I mean, it's happened recently in a few places I've been to. I was at a summit last week in Barcelona, and the acoustics were terrible. In the room, the acoustics in here aren't that great, So it's all about, if you're dining, if you want to talk to someone, you don't want to be drowned out by the music and shout. You want to hear each other, but still hear the music in the background. So you have that vibe and have that environment. So what I've seen recently is the acoustic properties of spaces are very important. Because if the acoustics aren't right, it's alienating as much as light is alienating if it's incorrect. So I think you can't just single one out or the other. I think it's a myriad of all of these sort of elements that sort of culminate in this experience. But I would say, like I say, acoustics, I was talking and you couldn't even hear yourself talk, and it was just across the table. And everyone at the end of this summit were, their voices had gone. And but even in a restaurant, if you're drowned out by the music, you don't have that interaction or engagement. And it's kind of off-putting. And temperature. So all of this, I go, and if the AC is too high, I'm too cold, I'm not comfortable. And I don't feel like I want to enjoy my evening out with the people I'm with. So again, all of these things are little weird things. You can't single one out or the other. Without the right light, temperature, and sound, there's no environment.
That's
so
a great
I'd say
point
3.
you're bringing up, Paul, because it's always it's not always, but in many times, the case where you go to a beautiful place, beautifully designed, excellent materials,
You're
excellent
freezing.
food, but then you end up not hearing your friends who you are going to see and spend the time with. That's a great point. So I really enjoyed this discussion, and I hope everybody enjoyed this discussion. It's interesting to hear from experts. Not only, I mean, we all know what is nice for us, but sometimes we need the expert's opinion and the expert's view on things. Thank you. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Hany, for this beautiful
Pleasure.
conversation.